I got it. All right, Jason, you can start.
All right.
All
Thank you
right.
all for coming once again to the Vati 2021 project webinars. This is our 7th webinar, 7 months of coming here on a Friday to learn more about the project and to get updates and get questions answered. So thank you all for attending. This is our agenda for today. Should look pretty similar. We're going to run through our welcome, some introductions, discussion about Vati as it relates to the Department of Housing and Community Development. And we're going to talk specifically about one project area and some delays that have been impacting individuals, not the whole project, not a big project area, but specific areas. And then we're going to move into an update from Lumen, and then we'll have our regular Q&A. As always, the Q&A function is available. If you move your cursor to the bottom of the screen, it should be in that bar at the bottom. Whenever you have questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A. Once we get to the Q&A portion, they will be queued up and we will start answering them. Some introductions. Mike Culp is here on the line. He is the director of the Broadband Accessibility and Affordability Office. My name is Jason Unifuentes. I'm the program manager for said office. On the line with us, we have Steve Brewer, director of state and local government affairs for Lumen, which is the parent company of CenturyLink and Quantum. We're skipping those slides this week again too, but everybody remembers CenturyLink, Lumen, and Quantum. We've also got Dolores Carroll, Director of Regulatory Policy from Lumen. And I regret we don't have Heather Lee on the line today, so that's one change. What is the Virginia Telecommunications Initiative? It is a state program. It's a state funding program for broadband expansion projects. It is a public-private partnership. So it is putting together private parties as well as a government entity, that's us and our broadband authority, along with the Department of Housing and Community Development to put together a plan for a project. It goes up, it's a competitive grant process. And so it goes up before DHCD and they review all the projects, and every year they decide who's going to get some project money. And I'll go ahead and toot my boss's horn here. Mike Culp has been behind 6 years in a row projects that have gotten a Vati grant. So we are kind of old hats at this, but every year there's always more to learn. This project.
That's just to mention a quick thing. Jason, you're doing a great job helping move this forward, and we're learning with every step. So we appreciate the community input on this. And then I've been reminded by our county attorney that when we talk about partnerships, we don't have a legal liability partnership with CenturyLink Lumen. So there's been a little confusion about that. Generally, when a government goes into a contract with a provider or any type of service provider, there is a legally binding contract. In this particular case, since we're working directly with the state in a grant participation, it's a little bit different. So anyone who has questions about our legal liability with CenturyLink Lumen or any of our Vati, Virginia Telecommunication Initiative partners, they should send something to the BAAO@albemarle.org. The other thing I want to bring up is, there's been a lot of outages this past couple of weeks. Those were unexpected, unfortunate, and we're not here to talk about those today. So, questions about those outages should be directed to our office as well. So that's the legalese for the day, and I'll hold off. And if people would like to send us emails about either of those issues, we're glad to work with you directly. All right, thanks, Jason. Sorry I had to be the wet blanket today.
Yeah, and that's perfect, because that brings us to our topic of the day, the topic of these last 7 webinars. So we're talking today about the Vati 2021 project. This was a $2.3 million of state funding directed towards this partnership with Lumen. This project with Lumen, I'll say it that way. It includes 10 project areas involving over 1,600 new passings. And I've answered this question a few times, I'll say it again. Passings means a parcel of land that can be served. So an empty parcel might not be included, and that's why we bring up in the Q&A section, and if you go to our website, you go to the FAQ section, you'll see a section for if you're planning on buying a piece of land that doesn't have a building on it, there's nothing to service, then it might not be counted, but you can still reach out to us and we can work with Lumen to make sure that if you're planning on building there, it will be available to be served when the time comes. And I did want to bring up the success of these webinars. We hope that you guys have found them successful and valuable. We have found them very valuable. And one of the ways that we know that they have had an impact is that we've been recording them, posting them on our website, on the Albemarle County YouTube channel. And we had an opportunity to share about these webinars with a government body, the Governor's Broadband Advisory Council. Yeah. And while I was prepping for that, I took a peek at the YouTube channel and discovered all of these videos. We have over 200 views of these videos, which is great because it means that even after participants that were live were able to watch it, those that missed it come back and they watch them, they get updates about the project, they learn more, and then they reach out with questions. So as always, if you have a question that's not related to Vati 21, reach out to us, baao@albemarle.org. And if you got a question about Vati 21, throw it into the Q&A now. All right. So Gilbert Station is among one of the project areas that has launched. I believe we're at 5 launched project areas, sorry, with a few more coming soon, and then some of the larger ones to follow. We'll have some updates about that in just a moment. With the Gilbert Station project area, there was a period of time when early signups, unfortunately, there was a process failure, and those kind of got left by the wayside. There was a correction made to the signup system, so that way that shouldn't occur again. And there is everybody's working to resolve this, because a lot of those people that signed up early and kind of got slipped by, they haven't gotten service initiated. They've gotten appointments, they've gotten visits, but they actually don't have service yet. And so I wanted to just take a minute to mention, if you're in the Gilbert Station area, if you haven't gotten service yet, if you've had a delayed tech visit or delayed initiation, reach out to us. We're working with Lumen. Lumen's trying to chase down where the problems are and how we can get this addressed. And so if you're in the Gilbert Station area, understand that that's kind of what's going on. And we're trying to work through it. There's also been some other delays that sometimes are related to different factors. And so we wanted to just review a couple of them, and then we're going to let Steve Brewer from Lumen discuss these a little bit further. The 3 factors that we see most often when there's been a delay. The first is equipment. Sometimes you need very specialized equipment to complete a task. So you've been able to dig a big long hole, drop some conduit in it, run some fiber through it, put some pieces of equipment into the ground, above the ground, next to the ground. But now you need to get that last bit. You need something special. And often those special things come to crews. And so sometimes there's a delay in acquiring those components. The other, timing, locates and timing. So every one of these projects involves multiple teams working in concert. So if somebody comes too early, if somebody comes too late, then there might be some issues. And those timing issues, sometimes again, they're related to, well, you need a special piece of equipment, or you need a special crew to come in and take care of something. All of these things are really, really important to get done, and to get done right before you move on to the next step. And so sometimes there are problems related to that. And then communication. And we've heard from some of you all that you hear from some of the people that come to visit that there's sometimes some communications lapses where somebody doesn't know that work hasn't been done, or somebody doesn't know that work needs to be done. And so those are the things that come up. And as always, if you have any issues with your service initiation, we welcome your emails, reach out to us. But with that, I wanted to just offer Steve Brewer from Lumen a few minutes to just discuss some of these challenges as it relates to both Gilbert Station, but also these different factors. Steve?
Certainly, and thank you, Jason. I think you've done a really nice job of describing the bullet points indicated here on the screen. it's my understanding we're down to 2 actual connections that need the special drilling equipment, which is, that's great news that we're down to 2. As you mentioned, we do oftentimes have to bring in special equipment, and quite honestly, with that special equipment, you also require a specially trained crew. It's not that you just ship the piece of equipment around from crew to crew. So, coordinating all of that does get to be a challenge from time to time. But we are down to 2 in this particular area, so that's good news in moving forward. Certainly, insofar as the communication goes and the timing, ideally, this entire process would take approximately 10 days. The first appointment, or the first that the customer would see after placing an appointment, is what we call a buried service check, which includes locates, and that would determine the location and the need for a drop. And then, drops are then ultimately buried by one of our contractors, and then a technician comes in and actually completes the installation. And certainly, if a customer were to experience a delay in installation, they should be receiving an email communicating a new installation date to them. So again, thank you for the opportunity to discuss these 3, and look forward to continuing to work with you. Certainly, if you as you know, if you get issues reported from your citizens, we're happy to help resolve as quickly as possible.
And Steve, I wanted to make sure, do we have an update on Gilbert Station and on taking care of those residents that had signed up, among the first to sign up, that are still waiting for their installation? So
those individuals are now in a pending stage, meaning they're in the rotation. Making changes to the rotation at this point, my fear is that would only serve to delay the process. But rest assured that they are in the rotation and should be receiving service in short order. And I'll continue to push to make sure that's resolved as quickly as possible.
Appreciate that. And again, if anybody else from Gilbert Station or other locations has any questions specific to your case, feel free to reach out to us. For more general questions, absolutely drop it in the chat. With that, we're gonna actually once again kick it over to Steve and Dolores to give us an update.
So yeah, certainly, this slide certainly just depicts the project and the individuals presenting here today. A bit more information about the overall fiber build, and then if you can move one more, we'll go right into our timeline, Jason. So this particular slide depicts the timeline. As you'll see there, Gilbert Station was the most recently completed. We've got the Advanced Mill Fray Road project coming up, the completion date end of this month. And then we will be moving into some much larger projects. There are the last 2 projects noted on the screen. We're in the process right now, working with our engineering team and network planning team to break those projects, those larger projects, up into smaller projects with additional due dates. So in other words, as these projects are very large, we're not going to just wait until the entire large project is completed. We will break those up into smaller projects and turn them all up as quickly as possible. So hopefully here in the very near future, we're going to have some dates associated with breaking those projects into smaller projects, which would be nice for your citizens. And if you want to go to the next slide. So this is just this is very similar information to what was covered on the previous slide. It shows the actual areas on our map here that have been completed, and the areas that are that will be coming down the road here in the next few months.
All right, and with that, we will move into our Q&A. Our first question in, we were able to sign up for an install date set for July 11th. The crew has already been in our small neighborhood to install the initial step at each location except 2 homes. Will they be returning to complete the initial step, those drops before those 2 homes before our July install date. So this is another case where, you know, it's specific to the area. And I think that this comes up often as residents are seeing work happening in the community. And then sometimes it feels like it stops short and it's not, it doesn't finish all of the work. You know, Steve, do you mind just talking about how timing sometimes works in terms of addressing parts of an area before finishing, and sort of what the factors are to go into that timing question?
Yeah, you know, certainly, you know, our crews work an entire area for a build, and you know, if there is an area that that citizens believe have been omitted, you know, I'd love to get those addresses and we'll verify, but you know, certainly those areas should all be completed. Just because they don't see the work completed in this time, and certainly July 11th is some time away. There's ample time to get that work completed. So, you know, if we could get those specific addresses that there's some concern about, I'll certainly be happy to look into those and verify that that everything will be in place in order to complete any scheduled due dates.
That's perfect. Thank you. And I'll mention, you know, that July 11th date, it obviously is a ways out. Do you want to just talk a few minutes about the way that timing can sort of affect those dates? Because that install date, right? That's supposed to be the date that they have service, right?
Yeah. So generally speaking, you know, once an order is taken from a customer, there's you know, the hope is to get all of that work completed within a 10-day process in order to provide the service. You know, I mean, certainly we have experienced some labor shortages in one particular critical step of the process, and we're working with our contractor to resolve those labor shortages. But you know, ideally, the process takes approximately 10 days from the time we receive the order and the customer receives service. So as I mentioned earlier on the call, the first appointment is the buried service check, which includes the locates, and you know, they'll actually determine the need and the location of the drop at that time. The drop is later buried by a contractor, and then finally a technician comes in and completes the actual install. That process generally takes anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, you know, once the technician is on site. So, you know, by and large, that's the overall process once we receive the order from the customer and that area has actually been completed.
And going to a project area specific question, we've got representing Milton Hills. What is the status of our project, and will it actually launch by July 31st? What obstacles have you encountered? And are you coordinating with Dominion as they intend to bury the electric lines in our neighborhood for working together? So let's start with that first part. Are you working? Is everything on track for Milton Hills to launch by July 31st?
Yeah.
Yes.
We are currently on target to complete Mission Hills for July 31st. Yes.
Yeah. And just to give you all, you know, some you know, behind the scenes, we meet with Steve and Heather every week on Mondays, and we ask these questions. You know, we run down the list of project areas to see where we are in each project area, and whether there's anything we need to do, whether there's anything that we can do to sort of step in and help out. That's where some of the information that we give you guys comes from, because if there's something that needs to be distributed, we will reach out. As to that second question about working in coordination to bury equipment together, Steve, I think you guys have collaborated in the past with some different utilities to sort of co-locate some things. Do you have any intentions to work, I guess, specifically with Dominion in the Milton Hills area, or is that something that we can maybe have an offline discussion about to see about in future project areas?
I would certainly need to circle back on that one. Typically, we do bury as much of the infrastructure as humanly possible. It is better protected when it's buried from storm damage. I mean, still, facilities that are buried can be damaged, but certainly that is our preference. But yes, let's circle back on that one. I'll be happy to check into the status of working with the electric provider in the area to on that particular location and give you an update at a later time.
Absolutely, perfect. And we've got a couple of questions about something we've heard a lot about, misutility, calling to get private utilities marked and other utilities. I'm going to start at the bottom actually with misutility came and mapped out our REC power line. Contrary to what I was told when calling Virginia 811, the technician at my house told me that they will also service private utilities. And then back at the top, do you have any guidance on the tracing of private water lines from a well? So we do have a contact. We do have a provider that somebody shared with us, one of the recipients, somebody that's already had their service activated and who had a similar private utilities issue. They did have success. They were able to get a contractor to come out and mark their private utilities. Anybody that has that question, reach out to us and we will share that contact information. I'm hesitant to just share it more broadly, just because I don't want that person to get overwhelmed and then not be able to make people's dates. But if you have that question, if you want somebody that we can recommend, we can share that information that was shared with us. As to whether 811 can, when the technician came out, most likely it was a subcontractor. So that's typically how the utility markings work. Somebody comes, so you call 811. 811 isn't sending a state employee. They're sending kind of a broad alert that this address needs its utilities marked. And then that subcontractor, the different subcontractors working for the different utilities, including CenturyLink, will go out and start marking everybody's stuff. And so, Mr. Dowling, you might have spoken with somebody who actually works for a subcontractor that also does private utility markings. And if so, grab their contact information, share it with us, and we can go ahead and include them, and we can start to put together a list of companies that we know are doing private utility markings, because that is something that's going to come up more and more as the larger project areas especially start to come out, because those are the ones that are, a lot of them are in well areas. And so if you hear about a technician that's able to do it, reach out to us with that contact information and we can share it. But if you call 811 and you say, will you mark my private utilities? 811 will probably tell you that they won't, but they will give you a list of names that you can call to find out if they will handle it for you. So, and then Miss Lippert has been waiting a little bit. So I'm gonna, Miss Lippert, if you're ready, I'm gonna let you talk and ask your question. Miss Lippert, if you'd like to unmute. Like doing live radio.
Or use the Q&A. I wanted to mention, we've reached out to Dominion 2 on our side. We often get this type of request, and in the past they haven't been able to work with us to do the co-bearing. There may be an exception. We are working together on a number of other projects. So thanks for bringing that up. It's very important that we hear when things like that are going on. The other thing I want to mention is, looking out for your neighbors is a great thing. So whoever put that question in about the 2 additional homes, thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. And please send us those addresses, and we'll figure out when they'll be approached and all. So thanks. I just wanted to chime in there. While Marguerite Lippert, yeah. So
yep, that's taken care of. So no question there. Thanks, okay. Mike.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And we've got still lingering on the private utilities question. So this is where our earlier rundown, whenever we've got somebody that's new to the call, which I think Miss Joy is, We have an FAQ on the website, as well as the slides for prior ones have all of the frequently asked questions. So private utilities in this case are anything that is not provided by a public utility, or a telecommunications company that services your area. So your telephone line, your cable lines, your electric lines, your water lines, your gas lines, water lines that are provided by a public utility, and gas lines that are provided by a public utility. All of those are included when you call Virginia 811. If you have a propane tank somewhere on the property and a gas line running, if you have a well, if you have an electric fence or private solar, you've got some wires in the ground to handle some lighting. All of those things aren't included when you call 811, and that's where private utilities, you need to be responsible. Now, there are different ways of doing that. As Steve mentioned, when you have a line, I'm going to forget the term he used, but when you've got the check, when they're going to come and they're going to figure out whether a line needs to be dropped and where it's going to go. If you're there for that, then you are absolutely able, if you want, to tell them like, hey, I know that I've got stuff here, and so I need you to avoid those areas. And if you can mark them in some way, shape, or form, get those little landscaping flags to mark them, that's an option. Our recommendation is that you work to contract with a utility marker to make sure that everything is covered and that it's marked exactly where it is. And specifically to Milton Hills, yeah, if everybody's on well water, then that's definitely something that you want to make sure gets marked ahead of time. And again, I think that question is going to come up a lot. We're going to try to expand that FAQ. We might include the recommended contractors for marking on that FAQ. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out. And moving on, so will the Taylor's Gap Box Holly area be split into multiple project sections? And if so, do you expect the completion dates all to be finished by September 30th, or is the plan to push out due dates based on creating subsections within that area? So take the first part of that. I'll take the first part of that, and Steve, you can take the second. The first part is yes, the Taylor's Gap, Box Holly, Rosemont area is expected to be one of the ones that gets broken up into different sections. We're going to let engineering, Lumen's engineering team tell us how those are going to get broken up and sequenced. The part of the reason that you break them up is because if you're working your way down an area, if you're done with one section, you should be able to light it up as you make your way down. And so that area will be broken up into different sections. We'll find out more from engineering, but Steve, do you want to share with us expected completion on that and whether breaking it up will affect any of those dates?
Right now, there's no anticipation that breaking up is going to impact those dates. Certainly, we're
not hearing you there, Steve.
Oh, I am. Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Maybe it's problem on your end, Jason. Maybe.
So, getting back to the response, we're not anticipating a change to the due dates of the overall projects in that area. We are anticipating getting an update from our engineering and planning team really any day now with breaking those
Mike,
projects.
Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me?
Yes, yeah. Definitely.
Okay, I'm not hearing anybody. Let me just mess around with my system here because I might have.
Yep. Okay.
So what I was sure. What I was saying is that we anticipate getting an update from our network planning engineering group here in the very near future that will break these up into smaller projects with more specific due dates. So we should have something here in very short order.
Yeah, can we commit to the next webinar at least? Give the community a little bit of guidance. Yes. Yeah, that would be great.
We'll push for that. I expected in advance of that, but certainly we'll look into that.
Okay.
Excellent.
As soon as we receive it, we'll send it out to our individual. We've got distribution lists for each of the large projects, so we'll let everybody know. Okay, appreciate it. Okay.
All right. Sorry about that, everybody. I lost audio for a little while. That was a strange one.
We were hearing you the entire time.
Right.
I got that now. So the last question that we've got right now, and we ask, don't share your address. This is something that actually everybody can see. And so in the future, I'm going to include that caveat. It says this is an address where the initial drop was not complete and our install date is set for July 11th. The other house in question is across from us, but is still being built. Hoping the delayed drop install won't impact our install date. Drops were done for all of their homes. So this sounds like it might be, and we'll check with the earlier question from Ms. Graves, it looks like. Sounds like this might be the same area. And we will double check on that. But if you're listed as anonymous attendee, if you would email us and give us a little bit more information about your install plan, your install date and everything, we can reach out and we can try to make sure that this particular area is not getting missed. My suspicion is it's just one of those tempo things where work was done here, work was done there, and work's going to get completed when ahead of that date. So that's what we're expecting. But if anything changes, then we will obviously work with Lumen to try to get it resolved. Now, I believe that there is a way for anybody that's on the phone, if they have a question, to raise their hand. So I'm going to throw that out there since we're out of questions. Anybody else that's on the line that wants to ask a question, feel free. But in the meanwhile, Mike, do you happen to remember how to raise your hand when you're on?
I think it's *9. I think it's *9. I'm not mistaken.
If anybody that's on the phone wants to ask a question, you can do that by hitting *9. That's right, to raise or lower your hand. We'll offer them that opportunity. If anybody else on the line has any other questions, feel free to ask, or if you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand. Can you please give the FAQ link? So one of the challenges that we have with Zoom is that you can have only so many features open at once. If I had the ability to send you all the link over chat, then I would. Unfortunately, I don't think I can. Although, Mike, do you happen to have our page open and you could type the answer in?
Not yet, but I'll do that while we're waiting.
Our email address, you can find us at albemarle.org under government, and sort of right below your cursor after you hover over the government section, you'll see broadband accessibility and affordability office. From there, you can go to our Vati 2021 page, and the FAQ is at the bottom. The slides for this are going to be posted, and there will also be a link to the YouTube video once that has been uploaded. So that way anybody that wants to watch it later can watch it there. But the FAQ at the bottom of that page is helpful for anybody that's new to the project, wants to learn more.
Yeah.
All right, and one last question. Is Stony Point still on schedule now? Stony Point, I believe, with Campbell Cobham has that October date. Steve, are we still comfortable saying October?
Jason, that's my understanding right now. Again, when we get the projects broken out into smaller projects, we'll have more definitive dates for each of these areas.
And it may seem like putting it off, especially when, here we are. We've got lots of months before October. Stay tuned. The whole reason that we do these webinars is so that way everybody has the most up-to-date information, that it's broadly distributed, everybody gets it, and that it's not necessarily just living in your inbox. It's here where you can hear it from partners, our partners at Lumen on this. I'm going to keep saying that word, and you're going to keep getting antsy there, Mike. But that is the easiest way to keep up to date on our dates is by tuning into these webinars and then looking out for emails from me. All right. We are at 35 minutes, might be a new record for us. We are always available by email. You've heard it 6 or 7 times by now, baao@albemarle.org. I bet I've got some emails in my inbox right now. Anybody that has any other questions, drop them into the Q&A right now. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up just a hair early. And again, for those listening by phone, *9 to raise your hand. We're going to add that to the intro, so that way our telephone guests have that opportunity. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody on the call, 25 of you, 4 with the panelists. We almost had 30 people on this call. Again, these webinars are a success because you guys are here asking the questions and keeping us in check. So please invite other people that you know that are interested in this project to attend. We hold them the first Friday of every month. So we will see you all in July. Have a great June. But if you have any other questions, email us and we will be in touch. Mike,
thanks everyone.
Steve,
thanks,
Dolores,
Jason.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Y'all have a good weekend. Thanks.
Well.
Hey, Mike, before you can stop recording, but before we close, let me copy